Hello guys, today we are back looking at the Liebherr 900 model. I have 3 servos mounted into it now, so we've one in the boom here for this joint, one here for this joint, and one here for the bucket joint. So these are the 3 1.7 gram servos that I showed you in the last video. We had done this one, but now we've those 3. I had said that I was going to put all 4 in, but I don't want to do this one yet because I want to try and get the slew mechanism working first, because I can put the servo for this movement, I can put it back here if I have to. It's not an issue, but I really need to position the slewing motor in the best position possible, and I don't know where that is yet. So before I have the slewing mechanism done, I'm not going to look at this lower joint. But I wanted to show you these 3 working as they are. It's not perfect, and there'll probably have to be a few more improvements. So just to show you, I'll give you a bit of an update as to where we are now. I suppose one of the first things I want to show you is the main drawback to using servos in something like an excavator. So it's when you power it up. So you've seen all the servos jerked there. So they jumped to the position that the microcontroller here, your main control microcontroller, told them to go to. And that's because the servos themselves are dumb. They have no understanding of, well, they understand where they are, but they don't feed that back to the main microcontroller. So there's no communication between this servo back to the main controller, only from the main controller to the servo. And that means that when you power it up, this controller has no idea where the servo is, and it can only send the signal that you've told it to send. There's no feedback. Ideally, you wouldn't have a microcontroller in the servo. You would bring the feedback from the potentiometer in the servo back to your microcontroller, and that way, when you power it up, this microcontroller knows where the servo is positioned, what angles your boom is at, and then there's no need for it to jump to any position because it knows where it is, and you just start from that point. So that is the main drawback with a servo-based mechanism. It was a big problem on the Hitachi build that I made because the boom is very heavy. So you power it up, the servo jumps quite aggressively to try and move the boom into the position that the main microcontroller is telling it to be in. But it's very heavy, so it's obviously hard to move so fast, and that would cause the servos, particularly the one that was raising the boom, to burn out. The other 2 weren't so bad, but the one that was trying to raise the boom, when you powered up, it tried to lift the whole excavator nearly. It is such a heavy boom, so that would cause damage to that one. For this, it's not such a problem because it's all a plastic model, so it's not the worst. So that's why I'm sort of demonstrating it with this one. When I redo the Hitachi, I'm definitely moving away from servos. It's okay, but it's not the best method of it. So we're hooked up here to our 3 servos, and I can just show you the mechanisms and show you the issues that we're having. So the bucket mechanism, you can see that working there. Not too surprisingly, that works fine because there's no real weight on it. Probably when we try to load something, it would be a different story. This one here was working okay. I'm not sure if this servo is good because I think there might be a broken gear in it. You can see there it jams, and from time to time you can hear the motor running as if it's disconnected. So that's jammed there as if there's something caught in the gears. So I suspect that there's a broken gear in here, and that the bits of broken gear are getting caught, that it just happens to be able to get back on track. I'm not really getting the point, but earlier I was getting a position where you could hear that the motor was running but the arm wasn't moving. So I think there's something broken in that one. So I'll have to swap out that motor, but probably is okay. This one down here though, it doesn't have the power, so obviously we can lower it no problem, but it's not getting up the full distance. So that's all the way down. We try to go up, get part of the way. And that's not surprising, because all of this weight is being translated back to this point, and the leverage from here back to here is quite significant. So even though the bucket weighs pretty much nothing, by the time you translate that back to here through all the lever, it's quite heavy. So what I might try and do, just to do something simple, is just put a little spring in there. I will try and take the load in the down motion. We'll have to fight against the spring to pull it down, but because we've so much weight, it might not be an issue. So we'll try and make it sort of neutrally buoyant, sort of, you know, it's not in water, but you know what I mean. Just try and take the load away from the servo, so it's not having to lift the full boom on its own. Hopefully the spring will take some of that movement. I also had to lose the cylinder that used to go between these 2 points. That's because basically I couldn't really get the servo in there and keep that cylinder in there, so I had to get rid of that. Also had to lose the one on the left here, because the servo arm needed to swing up into that area. You can hear that now, maybe. That motor is spinning there out of control. Pretty sure that is, a little closer. So hopefully you can hear that. It just gets to a point and all of a sudden the motor starts to spin. So I suspect that there's just a little section broken out of one of the gears, and when the gears align perfectly, the motor can just spin freely without being connected to anything. Probably if I pushed it a little, we'd catch the gears again. Not sure, it's a bit hard to understand what's wrong there. Maybe we'll take it apart and have a look and see what's inside it later on. But so far it's going okay. We need to get the spring in there, change this servo, and see if the next one survives. It was working fine before that. It's only when I assembled the whole arm, and it wasn't even when I had this weight on it. I hadn't even got the whole thing set up, and this seemed to break. So maybe I had a defective servo. Maybe I pushed it when I was assembling it and I broke a gear. I'm not sure. So something's not right there anyway. But that's where we are for the minute. The next thing I want to look at really is the slew mechanism, and when I have that sorted, I'll be able to look at raising and lowering the boom, and at that point we'll probably be able to come back and revisit the servos in the boom here and see how they're working. But probably the slew mechanism is going to be the main priority for this next. I don't think there's much else to go over at the minute. I think we've got about as far as we can with these little servos so far. They're not too bad. There's enough power in it to move the boom. I wouldn't expect it'll move much of a load, but they're not a bad little servo. But definitely this is too much weight for it, so we'll have to do something about that. So that's where we are for the minute. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the likes up, and don't forget to get subscribed and all of that. And yeah, that's it for today. Thanks very much for watching.